Hello everybody and welcome back to Boiler 1. Today we have a special episode. It's a different kind of episode. It might be split into two parts. I think that's what it will be. This is in celebration of International Photography Day. Yay! Mouse cursor celebration. So today I thought I would just go through some of my past photos, my amusement park photos, because I do like photography as a hobby, and it's great to take pictures of really cool coasters and other amusement park stuff. So this first picture right here is from Bay Beach Amusement Park. This is a view of the Lake Michigan, from the train ride, the old train ride at the park. It was the star attraction for a long time at the park, and I have very fond memories of it. And then this is from our trip last year in 2019 to Six Flags Great America. This is, of course, the Whizzer. This is my favorite roller coaster. It's not like I don't know. It's not like the best roller coaster I've ever ridden, but it's my favorite, if that makes sense. I like how it looks. I like how it goes through the trees, and it's really pretty, and it blends in with the hometown square. And we have this beautiful spiral lift that's really fun to ride and to look at and watch. And the echoes that the anti-rollbacks make is probably one of my favorite roller coaster noises ever inside this spiral lift hill, as well as the sort of rumble it has when it rolls down the track, because it sounds like a steam engine. So this is X Flight. This is the wing coaster at Six Flags Great America. It was opened all the way back in 2010, and it's definitely another coaster I really like at the park. It kind of served as a wake-up call for me to lose some thigh weight, since it was a little tough to squeeze into some of them vest restraints, but it was a really fun ride, and I like the pacing. The elements are spaced out pretty well. There's a cool drop. You can see it has the 0G roll here, and there's another roll right here. It's got a lot of cool scenery, which I'll show later. This is actually not the first ever Six Flags roller coaster to be named X Flight, but it's the first in over a decade, which is kind of weird. This is the Demon at Great America. It has the double corkscrew, so the train goes in and it goes upside down twice. And I really like the arrow corkscrew appearance with the corkscrews and the arch supports that go over it. It really kind of catches the eye, especially since a lot of arrow corkscrews go over park paths, which I think is a really nice job on the park's hand to really show off some of their rides. Even though I really wanted to get a picture of this ride as it was running, as the train was going through, but sadly the Demon was kind of having a slow day that day. But it usually has short wait times, and it's a really cool coaster to get your start on if you've never done versions, because it's not too rough. The only thing that might catch you off guard if you don't brace yourself is the transition into the corkscrew right here, but I think it's a lot of fun. You should check it out. And here's a little bite of bygone days at Great America. This is the old track from the Great America Raceway. It was an antique auto style ride that had the two side-by-side tracks that would race, and then it just became one. And I also have fond memories of this ride when it was still operating. This picture is taken from the queue line, the new queue line at of the American Eagle, which is another coaster that may not have a very bright future, at least in its current state, but I certainly like it. I certainly respect it as one of my favorites, and I love that you have this nice little view of days past. This is the Joker. This is the SNS 4D free spin that shows up quite common in the Six Flags chain, but I don't know how it compares to other ones, but this one is pretty fun, I'd say. It isn't too rough or uncomfortable, and it's really great that it isn't like super long, because I feel like, I don't know, the fact that it's shorter just makes its zany ride experience more, I don't know, more memorable. And it certainly has a cool appearance with the purple and green colors. It blends really well with the adjacent Mardi Gras themed area. And yeah, this is another good coaster if you've never done inversions before and are one of those people that likes to like jump into the deep end of the pool to get used to the water as opposed to the slow way. So yeah. There's another picture of X-Flight. This was just before a big sort of downpour was rolling in. You can tell by the clouds, but we took it before we had to get under a roof. Thankfully, it didn't last the whole day, and I still got everything else I wanted to do in after. But you can see the lift hill, you got the big 0G roll, and I think it really is cool how the track appears to just sort of buzz around its land. It really fits the test pilot feel and theme that the ride has. Um, yeah, and it has you have the inline twist through the flight tower and the narrow steel supports, which is a really cool way to end the ride, and it's why it's the superior wing coaster of the two I've ridden, because it ends on a high note and it's pretty smooth, and it may not be the longest coaster, but it's certainly one of the most memorable. And here's Max Force. This was their new coaster in 2019. It was unlike any other coaster I've ever seen, and the first ever full circuit roller coaster at the park, or no, full circuit launch coaster at the park and the first ever full circuit launch coaster I've ever been on. The only other launch coaster I had been on prior to this was um, an Intamin surf rider by the name of Avatar Airbender, which isn't so much of a launch as it is just to kind of get it started. And then I also rode V2 after this, which is another launch coaster, but this one is really cool. Full of thrills, and the tall 175-foot double inversion, you can definitely feel the height as you roll upside down, to right side up, and bank, and then back down again. I think you go up this way and then around this way. And the way you climb up these loops going upside down is an amazing feeling. Then, well, the half loop and then drop back down. And I love the way the track just kind of weaves in and out of the supports, it feels. I feel like that's a lot of newer SNS coasters have kind of structures like that, and I'd love to check out more. And this is Max Force after walking through the exit line. This is the dive loop that it kind of ends with. You can see the train running down, and the brake run actually starts right here, so you actually slow down, and it gives a really cool like feeling of slow motion hang time or something. I also love how the trains are designed like Indy 500 cars, and they have a little chrome on the nose, not actual chrome, I don't think, but like it looks like it, and it's really cool. And it's a really fitting theme because of the way that wing of the park used to have kind of a racing sub theme when there was a go-kart track there and a little RC racetrack you could play with. And I'm really kind of glad that they brought it back with Max Force here. Vertical velocity. This was as the sun was setting, and it made for a really cool picture where because of how the sun sets, when the sun sets, the shadows spread from the ground up. So you can see the ground is kind of shadowed here, and partially because of the station, but the tower itself is still lit by the setting sun, so it makes it pop out a bit. And this is another really cool ride. So far, it's the only Intamin Impulse I ever gotten to ride, but I don't know. I thought it was pretty cool. It's definitely gave me a run for my money. I thought it'd be kind of a softie after watching Max Force launch and take off, because this one is nowhere near as fast of an acceleration, but it certainly delivers a great feeling of speed, and the height looking down from the vertical spike is really cool. I didn't really get to experience much of the twist tower because I was sitting toward the back in row 11 of 14, but I hope to get on this sometime in the next couple of years when hopefully things clean up a bit. and get another ride close to the front and check out some other Intimate Impulses too. This is the park skyline. Is a nice photo I took just as the sun was beginning to set, and I was done with the coasters for the day, and my family were just going to get on a few rides, just get on a couple more flat rides together before the day end. And you can see we got the Raging Bull here, the B&M Hyper Twister, which is probably still my favorite B&M Hyper. It's got a cool pre-drop and a very forceful first drop and lots of twists and turns. You can see it goes out over here and then hills back over here, and there's a lot of really cool turns. I'll certainly make a video about the park's coasters in the future, but for now we're just going to stick to the pictures. So we also have Batman the Ride, the original B&M invert on the right here. And in the kind of mid-ground, you can see we have the Little Dipper, a little wooden coaster from the 1950s that was moved here in 2010, I believe. And then you have Max Force's big double inversion. Some people call it the dog's tongue. I like to call it the banana peel, but I guess it doesn't really matter unless they ever really officialize any of them terms. Excuse me. I think it's a great addition to the park skyline. It certainly has a very extreme quote unquote look to it, and I like it. And then we also have the Demon here. You can see its lift hill going out there, and then the loop right there. That's one of it. And then of course you can see the winner's circle, their new go-kart track, which I hope for the sake of the other rides in the park that if they ever need to clear more space for something, that this is on the chopping block, because as an upcharge attraction, honestly, I wouldn't mind seeing it go. Not that I don't like go-karts by any means, but I don't know. It just ain't worth it in a big park like this. So this is Mardi Gras Hangover. This was not technically a roller coaster, but I think the park still advertises it as one. This is a Larson International Super Loop, the first ever to be 100 feet tall, and is a very fitting replacement to the old King Chaos flat ride in the park. This one, I think, is a beautiful replacement. It certainly has a unique, it has a very appealing visuals. That's what I meant to say. And it provides a lot of good hang time, and it isn't too crazy or intense or sickening either, because despite how it looks, and if you don't mind the height and inverting that it is, it's actually a pretty tame ride. Not that it's a bad thing by any means. I think tame rides are good. They help add variety to the park, and I think this one does a really good job of that and still being like a fun thrill ride. And it's another one, if you've never really gone upside down before, this one will feel very welcoming. And I love the theming. It kind of brings the whole Mardi Gras section of the park together again. And the theme is nice and playful and comical, and has this beautiful light setup that shines at night and does all kinds of cool color patterns like this. This was while the ride was running. I think this was while I was on it, and it's a little blurry, but that's okay. And you can see the trains are moving, and you can sit forward or backward because it rotates in both directions during the ride. But yeah, I always make it a task when I go to Great America to ride one flat ride that I've never been on before there. And this year, not this year, but the last time I went, this was it. And I was very impressed by it, I've got to say. So by all means, check this one out if you get to the park. All right, now we're moving on to Little America that we went to last year. This was a small amusement park that's focused on a lot of classic attractions in Wisconsin. And this one right here is the toboggan. This is taken from the parking lot, but it's pretty easy to see. It's actually the oldest portable roller coaster in the world, the very first. And it looks very unusual, but you can kind of tell what they were going with, seeing that they have just this central tube and then some tracks that don't require a whole lot of support structure to go around the thing. And it makes for a very unique ride, but its fun factor is pretty good. You might be surprised at how fun this helix feels as you go down. It gives you the gumball treatment, as I like to call it, like being in one of them spiral gumball machines. The ride vehicles are kind of small, and being 6'1", I kind of fit in there like an egg in a carton real tightly, but I still enjoyed it very much, and it's a fun feel. And the chain lift goes up through the middle of this tube. It was actually this is actually the first ever roller coaster to feature a vertical chain lift as well, and I really liked it. I was surprised by it, and in a good way, of course. And I think you should definitely check out this piece of coaster history if you're ever in the area. There's a miniature steam engine featured at Little America as a train ride that's like half an hour long. And well, first it goes to a little station stop by a nearby hotel that you can stay at and be with the park and stuff. And then then it goes on a long scenic ride through a bunch of grasslands and some trees, and you can see there's usually animals. You can see some like train stuff, like there's a turntable with the shed and stuff, and yeah, and water tower and all that. It's a legit steam engine, which I really like. You can see it has what we got here. We got the bell over there. There's the steam dome right here. This is I believe it's a sand dome. So what it would do is they'd fill it with sand, and at the control of the driver, or maybe something else, the sand would be piped down here where it'd be spread on the rails or under the wheels so that the train can get more grip on it. It's kind of like putting salt on the roads, but it's sand because I think salt would probably mess up the metal rails, the iron rails. And you got the funnel here, you got the lamp, you got a little lantern that's probably there for some signaling thing. And you have, of course, the wheels and the piston right here, and all the cranks and stuff. It's really just cool, and I'm fascinated by steam engines and stuff. Always have been. It's kind of where the channel name came from. Well, a little bit. Uh, Also an inside joke, but I'll explain that some other time maybe. Another picture of that same steam engine. You can see the tender back here. It's got pieces of coal in it. I don't know if the coal is just for decoration or if it actually runs on coal, but well, it has to burn something. So this is pretty neat. You can see the driver in there, sitting in there. You got the whistle, you got the bell. There's the steam dome again. You got the back two wheels. This little nozzle that probably sprays off excess steam or something to keep the pressure or something like that. You can see the chains in the cab that are used to control the whistle and the bell. And you got the name Lee W. Merrick, the person after whom this park was named. That's why the name of the park has two R's and a CK instead of just a C, because it's named after him. Little America. This is another picture of the toboggan. This is after the helix. He does this big dip, which has a lot of, like, has a pretty good punch of G-forces, despite how small it is. And I don't know how, but there's just something cool about the way that these old vintage steel coasters would exert some heavy G's in their drops. Because there's a dip here, a little hill, and there's like one more dip, I think. Doesn't provide a whole lot of airtime, admittedly, but I do like the speed of it. It does have kind of a clunky transition, but it's cool. And I like that I was able to time this. That's something with roller coaster photography, is it takes a lot of timing, like photography of any other moving thing. But I like the detail. You can see the train's number. This is 2 because it runs 2 trains, and they have to numbers so they can keep track of which is which. You can see the wheels here. You can see these little wheat tires underneath. I'll tell you what those are for later. And yeah, and this photo is actually my my wallpaper for my computer person right now. This is the Mad Mouse. This was at Little America, of course, and this is an Alan Herschel style Wild Mouse coaster. I believe it was probably designed for traveling fairs and stuff, because it's not really. I mean, it's kept to the ground, but it isn't like cemented in or anchored in. It's like, it looks like a temporary base, which I think is kind of fun. It feels a little old and rickety, but like in a way that a wild mouse should be, and that's why I think it's my favorite wild mouse. It's because it um it it stays more true to the original design idea of the wild mouse, and it's really cool because the only restraint it has are these bars on either side of the seat that you're asked to hold on to. Other than that, it's completely just open, and it lets you feel the full force of the switchback turns slamming you into the sides. Not in an uncomfortable way, but you can definitely just feel them, push you left or right. And I think the way the track seems to sort of interact with the Ferris wheel artistically, I don't know, but that's what someone else told me, and it looks pretty neat. And you can't really see it, but the Mad Mouse is a cool little logo of a mouse that doesn't isn't gonna take any funny business. And yeah, so I definitely like this coaster. They fit a lot into its space, and it has a lot of classic charm. It feels almost like a backyard fair kind of thing. And yeah, and this is their star attraction, their wooden coaster, the Meteor. It may just be a little figure eight wooden coaster. I don't know. I don't know what the manufacturer is. I'll put it in post, but it's pretty fun. You get 3 circuits per ride, like per ride ticket or per ride experience, which is pretty generous of the park. And it's actually probably one of the smoothest wooden coasters I've ever been on. And the train, you can see the number. It has the number 4s, which I reckon means that they just keep other trains in storage because they can't run more than one train since it's a lap-based ride. So I wonder what the buffers are for, because I've seen them on other wooden coasters that it's like, there to soften impacts if there happens to be a collision. Although those are always tried to avoid it, but yeah. This one doesn't really have multiple at a time, so I guess they just kind of were built like that either way. I'm getting on a tangent, but it's a fun wooden coaster, and if you like wooden coasters, you'll like this one. Here's another picture of the toboggan where you can see a bit more of its layout. So you have the top where it comes around. There's a car has just got out and it's going to go down the spiral. And those tires underneath that I said before, those are actually for the helix. As you can see, there's this sort of like metal strip that runs along the middle of the track on the helix portion. And that's basically there to control the speed so that it doesn't get too fast for this for the thin steel to could otherwise damage the steel since it's made to be portable and it controls the speed. Still pretty neat that they were able to do that and still have it like a really cool ride. I think it's really cool. And another thing you hear is some trigger up there where when the train reaches the top of the lift hill, you can hear a bell ring down at the station, which signals that the lift hill is clear. Means that you can like advance the trains into the next block because of blocking and roller coaster technical stuff. I don't know, it's just something I noticed, and it's kind of neat how they do that. It's another picture of the Meteor. This is kind of on the other side of the train or of the track. You can see the pull after its first drop, and then another turn here, and a little dip before the station. And I like how the Ferris wheel appears to be kind of nestled in the sort of the valley of the track in between them. It's pretty neat. It's a pretty neat coaster, but I can only say so much about it because without being redundant. So moving on. This is our second trip to Bay Beach in 2019, so don't worry about the pandemic or anything. This is before then, so they're all fine. This was and when their new Ferris wheel was opened, which was in 2019. The first time we were there, the Ferris wheel wasn't actually ready to run yet, but then the second time it was open, and this was on my birthday, and it was a really fun time. When I first got off the Ferris wheel, my foot got caught in the door, and I fell onto the platform, and it was very funny. And thankfully, I didn't get hurt, but it did kind of bruise a bit, but that's all right. And then you can see all the other rides. You got the old Ferris wheel, which is also pretty fun. It feels a little bit more like a mild thrill ride than this Ferris wheel is kind of a gentle ride for getting a good view of the park. But this Ferris wheel does give a pretty good view of the trees too. It's cool how the park is all surrounded by trees. It's very beautiful. You have the yo-yo swing here, which got its new color scheme not too long ago. I haven't ridden it in a while, but this is pretty alright. You got the shed where the bumper cars are, and these are probably my favorite bumper cars of all time. But I guess that opinion might be subject to change as I see more and more parks. And then we have all the kiddie rides here. Very fond memories of them. We got the race cars, which were probably definitely my favorites back in the day. We got the fire engines, the granny bugs, the ladybugs, my other favorite, and the boats and the sky fighters, which you will hear from every part of the kiddie ride area. You will hear these sky fighters blaring laser sound effects because they have little shooty guns, and it's kind of a neat touch, but it gets a little annoying. But I mean, that's okay. It's for the kids, and it's all very colorful and painted. And I remember growing up at the park, we were able to see some of the rides get new paints, like new paint done, and I don't know. It means a lot. And then we have the Bay Beast Drop Tower ride, which, despite its small size, I find this one of the more intense drop tower rides, and probably the best because it just doesn't ever stop. It just goes up and down and up and down, and it never really pauses until like the end when it has to stop and unload. And this was looking at the Ferris wheel. On the other side is a beautiful view of Lake Michigan, so I won't say much. It speaks for itself. So admire it for a few seconds. Moving on. This is Bay Beach's new star attraction, Zippin' Pippin'. One of its best features, I like to say, is its ticket price. It's really only $1 a pop to ride it. And it's a pretty neat coaster. It isn't just like your typical little wooden figure-8 coaster. It actually has its own sort of unique layout. I mean, it was based on the original Zippin' Pippin' at Libertyland, and, same name and all. But a lot of new parts were used and stuff, or reused from other roller coasters, including the trains, which is kind of an interesting story that maybe I can talk about in the future. I'll definitely talk about this park more in the future, though. And I like the light bulbs it has. A nice classic look, and it's pretty flashy. Of course, you may remember this coaster from my RMC retrofit. Of course, I'd never really want to see this coaster get the RMC treatment in real life. I don't know if it ever really get that far at this little park, but if it did, but I'd love to see an RMC clone of it. Would be pretty neat. This is the hill that was made into a zero-G stall in that series. I like the color scheme though. You got the little stripes, and yeah. The middle seat gives a lot of really good like floater airtime, and the middle and toward the back gives like a good dose of ejector airtime on that famous or infamous bunny hill just before the just before the brake run. The airtime is really cool in them, but then in the front seat it might become a painful slap, or not a painful slam, not really a slap, if you aren't ready for it. And this is what the brand new Ferris wheel looks like. So it's pretty cool. This is from the Bay Beast Q line. The whole ride has like has a lot of airbrushed like artwork around it, which I think is really cool. It kind of gives it like a traveling fair feel, and I just think this is really clever. Oh, please don't feed the beast. And it's a little sea monster. So the artwork on display here is really impressive. Back to Great America. This is Goliath. This was their RMC Top of Track wooden coaster at Great America, and this first drop, which broke several records on its opening day, still lives up to its stats, and it's probably one of the strongest first drops in the park. And that's me right there. This was taken while I was riding it, thanks to my dad. and yeah, it technically is a wooden hybrid, but it totally rides like steel. So don't be afraid of all the twists and turns being a painful experience. It's not at all painful. It's impressive. And this big, long, gargantuan zero G stall is just unforgettable. The hang time is amazing, and you can just see the upside down station and park bass below. It's an amazing feeling. This is an inchworm that I encountered on a walk one day around my neighborhood. I just think the camera shot of it is really cool. This was on a normal sized sidewalk, and it was gotten up really close. And the inchworm just going about its day, doing a stronch walk. You know how they are. And that's gonna do it for this episode. I'll post part 2 just after this, so be sure to check that out. And I will see you guys later. Thank you guys for watching.